Alright everybody, hello and welcome to my very first video blog. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the weather over the next couple of weeks, probably through about the Christmas time, the holiday coming up, and we'll take a look at what's going on in the weather before then, so you can kind of get an idea of how the travel week before is going to go and what you should expect. So I want to open up the very first image here, and let's take a look at the 500 geopotential height. And this gives me an idea of the upper air pattern, where the ridges are, where the troughs are, and the ridges generally correlate with nicer weather, higher pressure, and the troughs generally correlate with your cold shots of air, and that troughs usually come in right after storms do, and that's why a lot of times in the winter you'll see the storm come through and then a shot of cold air follows. The first thing you'll notice is if you take a look in the left portion of the image, there's that big purple area, and that's right to the south of Alaska. Now this is a pretty important feature because when we have a ridge like that over the Central Pacific, that using the theory of wave physics means that there will usually be a trough on the central United States or the western United States, depending on how far east that ridge goes. And you can see right now it's built into parts of California, which is the reason for our colder shot of air. This feature is going to become very important as we see what happens with the way it evolves and the way it moves. Another thing I want you to take a look at is at the very center of the image, there's that very bright area of green, and that indicates your polar vortex, and you can see it is pointed towards North America, towards the east coast of the United States. Again, another reason why we're getting this shot of cold air. But you also see it isn't very strong. It's not very strong, and it doesn't really extend that far down. The core of the cold air is still bottled up in Canada. Now take a look at the next image. This is at 120 hours. This is December 16th, so this is in a few days. It's about 5 days out, and you'll see that that area on the over on the left side of your image, that ridge that we were talking about in the Pacific Ocean, hasn't really moved a lot. But what has moved is that polar vortex. You can see it's much stronger, and it's pointed towards Alaska. And you can see what's going on in the East Coast is, well, that trough area isn't there anymore. It's warmed up. Another thing that you need to look at is what's going on in Greenland. You can see that red area that's towards the middle of the image. It's just below that other area of red and purple. That is what's referred to as a Greenland block, and you'll hear it in the news all the time as the negative North Atlantic oscillation. That is what we want to happen for cold air to happen on the East Coast. However, you can see that the polar vortex is not pointed at the East Coast. It's pointed at the West Coast. The ridging in the Pacific is also not allowing this to happen, and as you can see, your cold air, again, locked up in Western Canada. This is going to become important as we move later on. Let's move later on. Here we're at the 20th. Here's the 20th of December, and you can see polar vortex still not where it needs to be to get the core of the cold air in place. And again, this is the GFS ensemble, so this is a whole bunch of different runs of the model. They slightly tinker with the initial conditions to get different result, and they average them all together. You'll notice on the left side, there's your ridge over the Pacific Ocean, your trough on the West Coast, and then if you look towards the bottom middle of the image, you can see the United States. Right in the central United States over the plains, there's that area of green. That's your next storm, and that's the one that a lot of folks are talking about around the 19th and the 20th. And a lot of people are saying, oh, maybe this is snow. Probably not. You see where that low is right now over in Kansas. And you see that it's probably not going to dig a whole lot deeper. And the reason for that is because you've got that massive trough on the West Coast. You do have your blocking, yes, but it's not going to dig a whole lot deeper down. That's not going to happen. Let's switch models now. Let's see what the European is saying. And a lot of folks will remember the European from how it did with Hurricane Sandy when it came up the coast. It did a very good job. Here it is on Wednesday, December 19th. This is late Tuesday into Wednesday. It's at it's at midnight UTC, which is the time in Greenwich, England. That means it's very, very late on Tuesday, late in Tuesday evening. And this is a map of the United States with the 500 geopotential height, which gives me an idea of what's going on in the upper levels, and the 850 temperatures, which tells me, okay, how warm is it in those middle to lower layers of the surface? So what kind of precipitation can we expect if it's raining? You'll notice there's your low pressure system right over the central U.S. You can see it where those green and orange areas kind of meet, and your lines of those isobars, those are your lines of equal pressure. You can see where they kind of close off and create a circle down there. That's where your low pressure is. And now if you draw a line from where the top of those circles are to the very, very tightly packed isobars beneath the low pressure, you can see it's kind of slanted a little bit, slanted from northwest to southeast. This means we have a negatively tilted trough. This also means that the low is going to start to move to the north. So if we're talking about a low pressure in Texas moving to the north and east, probably not going to get off the coast in time to wrap around enough cold air to give us snow. Next image, let's go over here to the European again. This is your 850 temperature and your wind stream lines. We advanced it 24 hours. This is from a different source. This is over at WeatherBell. Great folks over there, great images. Definitely encourage you to sign up for that service if you want these high quality images. It's a 7-day trial. Great. Take a look at what's going on here. If you look over southern Michigan, there's that area of there's that closed circle. That's where your low pressure is. What do we know about low pressures that go to our west? Well, there's a southerly flow on our side of the low pressure. It's bringing in warm air, and if you take a look over most of Virginia, there's that yellow-orange color. That means those temperatures at 850, again, those middle layers in the atmosphere are above 0 degrees, which means we're falling as rain, no snow on that storm on the 20th. And let's finally, here's a last image. This is just reiterating my point here. This is late Wednesday, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday, December 19th in the afternoon. Here's the precipitation over the past 6 hours. You can see heavy precipitation, big storm, a lot of snow on the north side in the Midwest. Maybe even New York State is talking about some snow, but over in Virginia, we're talking about rain. Could be pretty heavy. We'll have to see how it evolves. But if you know anything about meteorology, you can probably pick out where that low pressure is right over Illinois and Indiana. Again, bringing in the wind from the south, which means warming. Probably not going to be talking about any type of wintry precipitation with this one. So that's a look at the weather over the next couple weeks. I'm still not seeing a sign of any major Arctic blasts, although there is an indication. I'll kind of hint this out, I'll kind of throw this out there. There is an indication that maybe around Christmas or so, maybe around Christmas, we could get a little bit colder. But again, 2 weeks ahead, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Certainly it can go right, but right now, let's take it 1 week at a time. Right now through the 20th, I don't see any signs of snow, but like I said, if the long-range models are correct, we could be getting colder right around Christmas. So that's all for this update. Hope you found it informative. Hope it wasn't too boring, but that's what we're looking at for the next couple of weeks.